back to my stream and thank you for joining in. Uh, um, so let's begin and let's continue and finish what we were doing from yesterday, from the other day, from the first session. Before we start, I would like to basically give a heads up that if there are any technical glitches or issues with my audio or my feed, so feel free to point that out in the chat window, right? And I will try to fix that, right? So last time around I had an issue with my audio. Hopefully this time around this should be a bit better. But if you do see any hiccups or jitters or anything for that matter that you don't really like, so feel free to point that out, and hopefully we'll try to fix it. All right. So let's start. Okay. So let's start the session and explain what we are trying to do. Okay. So let's get to it. Okay, so last time around, we were building out a Next.js application wherein we were fetching a list of colleges and universities from all over the world, right? We were developing a search engine sort of for institutions and colleges. So this is the thing that we were developing, and this is the thing that we want to do. And before I get this, let me just start this locally and to show you what we are actually going to do. Uh, so let me power up my dev server, and we're gonna see the same application running locally. All right. So this is the application, and let's start. Let's start to search. So this is what we were developing, right? Let's search something for Delhi, right? This is the API powering up, and this is the app that we are developing. So last time around we actually built it, and besides building it, we also wrote some test cases so that the integrity of our app could be checked. All right. So basically, if I go back to my slides, uh, sorry about that. So if I go back to my slides, I have the first step, we built this application, and the second step, we actually wrote some integration tests using a headless browser to make sure that the functionality is working as expected, right? Today, we are going to do the last two steps of the project that we intended to do. And these included deploying this application to the cloud, making it live, right, for the public to use. And also, we want to automate our deployments, and we want to do it in such a way that whenever we actually commit our code and we push our code to any of the branches of GitHub, so the steps 2 and 3 should kind of be automated depending upon certain criteria that we will speak about. All right. So let's get to it. Um, let's get right to it. And okay. So, let's start by explaining what we want to do. So we want to deploy this on an Ubuntu DigitalOcean droplet. And this is, remember, a droplet is just a virtual machine that is running a full copy of the operating system. And it is just like a normal machine for the application that we're going to use inside it. So for that, it is a proper physical machine, and it uses the resources like a real machine, but internally it's not really a real machine. It is more of an emulated machine created by something called as the hypervisor. But we're not going to go into details what it is. We're just going to actually start creating the droplet first. Let's go back to DigitalOcean's control panel. So I have my DigitalOcean right now logged in, and this is DigitalOcean droplet control panel. DigitalOcean, mind you, is a cloud provider, so it kind of gives you virtual machines, databases, and things like that, so that you can basically deploy your apps on that infrastructure, and that way it's actually live and it's available to the public, right? That's just a very simple definition of what it is. This is very similar to enterprise level products like AWS and Google Cloud Platform, as well as Azure. So you might have heard of those. It's actually a simpler version of those platforms, and it's actually a bit cheaper than those. So we'll be using DigitalOcean because it's more simpler to use, because AWS or GCP get a bit overwhelming just by looking at it. So I didn't want to bob you down with all those details. I just wanted to actually uh, help you, get this done as soon as possible. So on my DigitalOcean control panel, I have a create dropdown. I'll just choose a droplet, right? And this is the window that I'm taking to. So I'll be using an Ubuntu LTS 20, right? Version 20. This is a very cheap solution, so you have to pay by hours, hourly, right? You have to it's actually billed hourly, so that means that we can actually just run this for a few hours, get our job in, and we can shut it down, and it'll be just done for a few simple cents. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the cheapest option, that is a regular Intel with SSD option, and you can see that it's $5 a month. It's like I think that's a few cents per hour, so it's like $0.007 per hour. This is what we'll choose, and we're just gonna choose this server closest to me, that's Bangalore, and the VPC will be default, not won't go into details here. So let's actually just drop down. So we want our server to be in Bangalore because that's closest to where I am. So I just want the lag to be the least for me when I'm logging in and doing all my stuff. So okay, so the next part that we have to take care of, this is very important, right? So this is the authentication part. So once our virtual machine is live, how do we want to access the virtual machine, right? So particularly for this use case, there are two possible ways in we could do this, right? This is basically what I mean by remote logging in, right? It's like a desktop app. If you use a thing called TeamViewer, or use an app called AnyDesk, right? But that's a bit different. It operates on a different protocol. This is a much different protocol, but the idea is basically the same. You'll want to log into the machine and you want to do whatever you want to, right? And you can do that by using two methods. One is, you'll create a password for your root user, right? And the other is using an SSH key. An SSH key is generally a more friendly, no, it's not a friendly, but it's a more secure way of actually logging into your virtual machines or your remote machines, I should say. So, and this is the thing that this is the option that we are also going to choose. All right. So because passwords can be misplaced, and that's all right, and your access is lost basically. So you give away your access. Whereas keys are much more secure. They live inside your own machine, physical machine, and these are, it's harder to for an attacker to actually sneak to your keys, right? To get access to your keys. So to use this, I like to explain this concept a little bit. So what is SSH key and how it works? So think of an SSH key as sort of a password, but not really a password, but it's more of a key. It's more of a file that acts as a password. So that is kind of a layman's definition of what is an SSH key. But technically speaking, an SSH key is actually it's actually a composition. It's actually a composition of two keys, right? It's actually a pair. So it's not a key, but it's a pair of keys, right? So I'm not okay. Sorry about that. So we're just gonna write a new file and I'm gonna explain to you the concept. So I'm just gonna zoom in it, and let's just write. So an SSH key is basically a key pair, like I said. So there are two sets of keys. Just gonna explain this concept real quickly before we move forward, because I need to use these concepts later on in my pipelines and things like that. So it's basically a key pair. One key is called a public key, right? And the other is called a private key. Like you have guessed, the public key is what you actually give to servers, or you actually give to the remote server that, hey, here is a public key, just hold it for me. And whenever I come to you with the private key, please let me log in. So it's kind of a lock-in key, whereas the public key is a lock and your private key is the actual lock. So it's like a lock-in key mechanism, right? Um, so this is how the SH key actually works. So when we are actually giving out keys to server, when you are storing keys in the server, we'll store the public key and the private key will remain with us, and we'll log in using the private key. So let's actually start doing this. Uh, let's actually just start doing this and see how it's done. Okay, so the SSH key is actually, we need to generate an SSH key, and then after we generate it locally on our machine, we can actually use the same on DigitalOcean. To do that, I'll actually quickly open my terminal and show you how we can generate a key. So there's a command in Unix and Linux file systems. All right, for Windows it could be a bit different, and I'll explain to you how we do this in Windows. But for now, let's just actually use it on my machine. And what we have to do is you have to write a command called ssh-keygen, or if you're on a Unix or a Linux system, you'll probably have this command installed by default because it already comes with SSH, right? Sorry about that. So we need to actually, the command is like this. So ssh-keygen t rsa, like, and then the file name, and this is the file name. So basically what this command looks like is this, right? uh, and this command, what it tells us, that we need to use the RSA algorithm, and the name of the key will be this one, right? So if you press enter, this will generate a public and private RSA key pair, right? So this also, we can actually password protect the key as well. For this discussion, we will not be password and we'll not having we won't actually keep a password on the key. We'll just keep it blank, and we just press enter, and then we can see that the key has been generated. So I actually so for this tutorial, I actually generated a key, and But I'll show you one more step that we need to do. So if you can, if I just, you know, um, if I just basically print out the contents of the folder, so you can see there are two keys, actually two files that are being generated. So this is the key pair that we have to use, right? So these two. So this is the public key and this is the private key. And we just need to, we now we need to do two things. One, we need to actually create a folder called SSH. So we need to create a folder called SSH inside the home directory. This is how we actually store the keys and help our SSH agent to find them. Now we have generated the key, it's fine. And then we just make a directory called SSH if it's not there anymore, and we just move our key, right? We just move both of these to that folder, all right? We just move them. And once we have moved them, then we need to run one more command, and that is SSH add. This is only for Mac OS. You might not be doing this for Linux, but for Mac OS, this is required. So you would be writing a command called SSH add, right? And you'll just give it a name, and then you could actually just do this. So if I actually do this, before the tutorial, I actually made these keys in, and I actually generated them, and I put them in my SSH folder, right? Um, and I'll just be reusing those because I've already uploaded those to my DigitalOcean console, right? And you can see it is right here. This is my pub key, right? And I've already uploaded them and added them on my SSH agent. So the command you need to do is you need to move it to the SSH folder. And if I go to my SSH folder, right, really quickly, and I'll see that I have my keys right here, right? And so this is the two keys, right? So I just have to write one more command, and that is SSH add the key, and I'll just write the key name and I'll just press enter. So this is the next, this will basically add it to my SSH agent, and this is now basically added to my SSH agent. So what do I mean by when I say it's added to my SSH agent? So basically when I try to log in, when I try to access server, so my SSH agent will actually provide this key for me, right? It will actually offer this key to the server as a method of authentication. So that's the only three commands we need to remember, right? And of course we have to also move the pub key, right? So these are the commands that we will be using, but this is just a one-time thing. You just have to generate the key once, and you can use this across. Ideally, the best practice is to use keys on the least number of servers, because if your key is compromised, you won't basically compromising the least amount of servers, right? So that is the idea. But but right now, let's just assume this is just a one-time step, and let's just do it. Let's just assume that we're doing it for all of our servers right now. So so as you can see, I've already uploaded my key file here, and I'll just add it here so that I can log in. And let's see, I want my host name. This is just the name of the virtual machine. I'll actually just use what I want. So it will be like institutions lookup, right? It probably doesn't allow spaces. So what I'll do is I'll actually just write it in probably in snake case. Okay, it doesn't really allow that as well. Let me see camel case. Yeah, camel case is good, right? So this is the one, and this is basically just it, just a cheap droplet, and we'll just create this droplet. Okay, so I hope you're having fun. So basically this is the droplet now being created. It's default created with okay, so it's created with a RAM of 8 GB, but I think we actually made a mistake. We shouldn't have kept it an 8 GB virtual machine. We should have. I think I just made an error by choosing the RAM and things like that. So let us, we can actually change it. I think it actually chose the one that is quite expensive. So anyway, but that's just fine, right? This is a mistake that I did. Right now, let's just go back. But this should not really stop us from doing what we are doing. So let's go back to my droplet, and you can see now my droplet is powering up. So okay. Okay, so okay, my droplet has now powered up. Let's try to log in and see. So we'll just copy the IP address, the public IP address. We'll go back to my terminal. I just make a fresh terminal and try. So I'll do SSH, and I'll do something like so the by default the user that is created is root. It actually just it allows access on the root user, DigitalOcean. So the user is root, and this is a root, and this is the IP address. And we'll just do enter, and let's see if I'm able to enter it. So yes, we want to add it to our permission denied, right? So I guess something is up. My key is probably not working. So let's see what's going on. I'm just gonna turn on my vflag and see the logs of this. Okay, let's see. Okay, probably I need to re-add my key. Think. I think. Not sure though, but let's see. Yes. So as you can see, I had to add my key, and now the SSH agent is now offering the key, and now I'm actually logged in. So this is actually me logging into the virtual machine, the Ubuntu virtual machine, and there you can see this is my virtual machine. I'm currently just accessing it. Now, like I said back a while back, that we are just going to use a simple web server for our deployment, and we will host our static HTML and CSS files here. But this will use Nginx, right? And Nginx is also is a very popular web server, and also it's also used as a load balancer, a reverse proxy. We're not going to details what those are, but for now, it's important just know the web server part, and that's what we will focus on. So this is the web server, and to use it, we need to install it. To install it on the machine, we'll have to do apt-get. This is just a fancy way of installing packages or dependencies, right, on Ubuntu. So we'll just do apt-get install, and we'll do Nginx, and this is how we can install Nginx. So it's just I'm gonna do yes, and it's just gonna download Nginx for me, and it's going to run it also. So it will be started in the background, and will be running even after reboots. It will be running because it adds it as a service. So we can actually check it. So if we have to write status Nginx service Nginx status, and it will tell us that, hey, the web server is actually started. Now, to actually make sure that this is actually the case, we'll just copy the IP address, and default it runs on 80 port, and there you see. So our DigitalOcean droplet is now basically now using Nginx, and it's now serving requests. That's great. Okay, so what do we have to do to basically make sure that now our application is there on Nginx? Now, to do that, what we need to do, let me explain to you a bit more steps we need to follow. Uh, but before that, let me just take a breather for a few seconds, and we'll be back and we'll resume this shortly after, right? All right, we're back, and let's see what we were doing. So basically, we have successfully installed Nginx on our Ubuntu machine, right? And we followed the steps. We generated our repair, and this is fine, right? Now, afterwards, what we need to do is I just need to inspect, and I need to show you how Nginx does what it does. So basically, we need to configure Nginx, and then they can add our files. All right. So I'll show you a bit of Nginx configuration. For that, there is a configuration file. So I have to go to, I'm not sure if you can see this. I'm just going to increase the font a bit, right? I'm just going to have to go to the Nginx configuration. So this is etc nx, and this is the folder that houses the Nginx files or configurations. So for now, I need to go to a folder called sites enabled, right? And this just has one site of default. So we'll see what it actually has, right? We'll just open our text editor and see what the contents of the file look like. And as you can see, so this is basically just a syntax of how Nginx is configured. So for this website, it actually starts a web server, and it listens on the 80 port. So this is actually the one that's been running right now. And as you can see, it actually serves from folder structure like this. So it has its root folder. The root of the website lives here, and this is the server name, and this is the index.html file. And of course, this is basically just a fallback to try all the files. If we add any files apart from index.html, and it will by default fall back to a 404. So this is all. I think this is fine. We don't need to configure anything. Everything is set up for us. The only thing that we have to now make sure is that our static HTML and CSS and JS assets now come under this folder, right? So they're inside the HTML folder, and that's what we're gonna do. But the cool thing is we're gonna actually do it all from the CLI, so no GUI involved. So we're just gonna go back. So this is where we need to actually, so we need to do it here, right? So where www.html. So this is the place wherein we would want to upload these files. Which files? Once we do a yarn build, then we can see that. So basically, once we build this, we will have a build folder, or probably an out folder for that matter. I'm just gonna wait for this to happen. That out folder will have all the files that need to upload there. So let's actually do this, and let's just do this via a script, and the script will basically upload the files where we want them to go. Let me show you the out folder. So this is, so basically we want these files to be inside this folder right here. As soon as they're there, our website will start to work. To do that, what we'll do is we'll just make a directory called scripts, and we will add a new script, right? We will call it, let's say, the publish. We'll call it a publish script, right? uh, we'll move it to scripts, and now this is the script that will house all the deployment logic for our application. Now what do we want? Ideally we would want to do, I think we need to add one thing here. uh, uh, okay, so this needs to do a few things. This needs to do actually just two things, right? Just building and uploading files. So just need to do two things like this one, right? So there's two things. So this is what we're gonna do. We will set some environment variables. So we had one called environment, I think, that we actually want to set to something called production, right? We're just gonna set it to production list, right? Setting env environment for build, right? Setting up environment for building, and afterwards we just want to write the command that we already know about. That's npm run build. So this is the command we want to, and we're not just gonna run it. We're gonna run it with a flag of scripts prepend. This will allow us to actually run it from yarn, if yarn is the one executive file. So this is the build command, build the app, right? And set environment for build and build the app. Afterwards, now comes the next part. It's actually simple. We have to upload the files on the server, and to that, I'm just gonna copy the command. I'm gonna paste. I'm gonna explain to you what it does. Right. So I have a script made that actually has the file already there. So we'll again cheat a bit, and we'll just copy. We're just gonna copy this file, and I'm gonna show you one by one. Right. Just basically this file. I'm gonna write it down. I'm just gonna save some time, and I'm gonna copy paste the command here. So basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the environment variables, and we will actually do a run build, and we'll use some echo command, and then this is the command that we actually want to see. This one right here, this one, and I'm gonna explain to you what this command is doing. So it actually uses protocol called FTP, but over SSH. So this is similar to your FTP or GUI based applications, and basically we will be using this via SSH. So there is the S command, the S prefix. So it uses VSSH, and we'll actually do it. So this is the command, right? So to actually upload file, the command is SSH, then username, and then of course the IP address, right? So the IP address in this case is probably this one, right? So it's gonna copy this. I'm just gonna paste it here, and also gonna paste it here. So this is the command that will allow us to actually set up a session with the server, and we can upload files. But what we it actually but it's actually a combination of two commands. The command only just opens the terminal that will allow us to upload the file. The actual command that will do it is we need to run this command called put, and then recursive for folder, right? And then we'll do out. We'll want to move all files from out. And where do we want to move them to? So this command actually has one more suffix that we would want to add. It's actually the directory. So the directory is like this one, right? So this is the command that will open up a terminal that will allow me to upload files to this location on this IP address using this user, and the SSH credentials will be used, the key that we just generated. And these are the files that we would need to actually upload there. So I just combined these two commands, and I've just combined these two commands, and this will allow us to basically upload the file in the sorry, uh, in the droplet. Okay, let's run this command. Let's see this live. But I really want to. I want this. I want to make this a bit better. I want to actually add a package JSON script of deploy, and from there we can run it. So we'll do bash. We'll do a publish, and we'll do a scripts, and then we'll do a publish.sh. Right. So we'll just do a deploy command in we just add a deploy command so that we can run it via the yarn scripts or npm scripts. So we'll just do yarn deploy. Let me just put this up a bit, right? Let's actually just use another one, and we'll just do a yarn. One second, guys. Right. All right. Sorry for the. So we're just gonna run this command that we just made, and this is we're just gonna run it in the bash, right? And then this is the build variables, and then I'm just making the server related variables different set of environment variables. I'm just fill them in as a placeholder because sometimes we want to reuse them. I just not reusing it at the moment, but we could have hardcode as well. Nothing really different, but ideally when there is a complex build script, ideally we want to reuse somewhere. So it's better to actually create variables for these, right? And they kind of are variables, right? Technically speaking. So it's just meant to make them as variables. So let's just run this command that I'm going to now. Okay, it says that this file there is no okay, okay, right. That's actually right because it's actually publish.sh. Just missed the extension. So there it is. Okay, so basically this is gonna run my build command, right? And that I had made previously. And let's see. Okay, so that's building now, right? So it's building via the script. So let's see what's gonna do. Okay, all right. So let's go. Well, you guys have any questions till now? Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to post them in the chat, and we can have a small discussion. Okay, so now you can see my production version of the has been built, and now you can see that it's actually uploading all the files one by one, and it's actually gonna do that right now. So okay, it's done. So all the files are now here. Let's actually just check this folder, see the contents, and yes, for sure the files have actually been added. So let's actually just refresh um, my address and see if we get the site. And yeah, of course, we do have the site. So voila, the site is here, site is up, the site live, and now it's actually shareable to all the users. So this is actually great news because we have covered the third step, and this is how we'll deploy this application, right? We just deployed this application via script, and this is all we need to do, to be honest. And sorry about that. This is all we need to do, and don't need to do anything else. uh, and this is all for deployment. Right now, next up, we're actually going to see a more important thing in the session, and that is how we can actually automate all this, and how we can actually set up a something what we call something called pipeline. So we can set up something called a pipeline. So a pipeline is basically a chain of commands that you automate, which actually accomplishes few things like testing and deployment. So I'll explain to you the pipeline that we are going to now build and see how it's going to work. To do this, we'll use GitHub's own pipeline feature that's called GitHub Actions. Before this is actually a very recent feature. Before this, we would actually do this via some other CI servers. There was one very popular open source CI server called, I think it was called Travis, right? This one, all right, and another very famous one that a lot of people still use is actually Jenkins. So Jenkins is actually a CI server that you host on your own infrastructure and your own server. So you can have an automation server on your own machine. So that is what Jenkins is, and CI Travis is a hosted service, right? It's a paid service, and there's like there's one called Cirrus CI from Google as well that we can use, and there are a few more. Like I think there's another called Circle CI, and there's another called Semaphore. So there's actually a few of those actually. But right now we're just going to use GitHub Actions because it's built right into GitHub, and um, and it's going to be very easy to integrate and use. And it also comes with a generous free plan that I'm going to use for our repositories. So let's get started, right? To get started, let's just actually just follow the documentation and let's just follow along, right? So let's just do a quick start for now. And so what we have to do is we have to create a directory called github.github, and we have to create a called workflows. So what we'll do is we'll just create this directory, and sorry about that. So it's gonna create this directory, and here you see my workflow directory. Now, before we actually move on to creating the workflows, I'm just gonna explain to you, like I'm just gonna draw out like how what we want to accomplish in a more like I'm just gonna visualize it for you, and I wanna show you what we want to accomplish. It's gonna be it's gonna be a simple pipeline, but there are gonna be some few interesting concepts that we will implement. So it's not be a simple pipeline as such. There are gonna be some logic, and it's actually gonna be two pipelines, not one. So let me start doing that. All right. So let me explain to you diagrammatically what we want to accomplish, right? Okay. All right. You have to give me a bit. So I just want to share my device here. Just want to. I just want my device to come up here. Okay, awesome. All right, awesome. So if you can see my device right here, so I'm just gonna draw on the device itself, right? It's hard to draw on a laptop. So basically, what our pipeline will look like is, so firstly, we want to, okay, what will be our trigger point, right? When do we want to actually start doing something? So we'll actually start doing this on each. Okay, let me just draw this quickly, right? And how we're gonna do it is like we're gonna do like wherever there is a push on the like on any of the branches, right? So yeah, I'm actually pretty lousy at drawing, right? So let me just okay. So the action. So I'm just gonna draw like this, like so it will be a push. So whenever there is a push, when there is a commit, right? So whenever there's a commit, you want to trigger something. So what do you want to trigger? So basically, the first thing that you want to trigger is um, uh, we want to actually run this, right? So this is gonna it's actually gonna be a very simple pipeline. All right. So we're gonna run tests. My drawing is actually pretty lousy. Sorry for that. And then what we want to do is after the tests are done, if they're okay, right? We want to actually deploy. So this is what we want to do, and this is just a very simple example of what we want to do. Uh, to make this a bit more interesting, what we'll do is we will actually break this down into two pipelines. So one will be the testing pipeline, and the other will be the deployment pipeline, right? So now what we'll do is whenever there's a push on any branch, right? Whenever there's a push on any branch, be it master staging, like feature branches, anything for that matter. So we're gonna run tests, and we're gonna check whether each any other commit or any code has actually broken our test or not. And after if and now what we're gonna do is we're actually coming here. I'm just gonna draw an if else, right? So and then we will actually do something of a conditional trigger. So what we'll do is if our tests are okay, right? Only then we want to move the deploy step. And there's also one more interesting thing to do is that we only want to deploy whenever there is a push to main or the master branch. So if you go to GitHub, right? If you go to the repository, right? Uh, Not that one. Okay, I'm just gonna yeah, that's the one. Right? There's a main branch, and this is one branch. So there can be multiple branches like staging for release or QA or different versions of your code, right? So we only want to deploy, right? Only want to make this live whenever there's a push and tested there's a commit on the main branch and when the code is tested. So we only want to deploy when there is a deploy. We only want to deploy when there's a push on the main branch. We don't want to do that when the deploy because we don't want that. So because the other branches contain some feature that we are currently working on, it may not be complete, right? Or there may be a complex scenario wherein we want to deploy to a different environment based on the branch. So that is also possible. But that's something that's out of the scope right now. But for now, we can just assume that all the commits that are being pushed to the main branch will be tested and also will be pushed, whereas other commits will just be tested. It's just a simple flow, right? So coming back to the diagram. So we only want this. My drawing is really lousy, right? I'm sorry for that. Um, so this is what we want to accomplish, right? And if we break this pipeline down a bit more, right? So what are the steps that we need to do? So what we need to do is first we want to set up, right? Set up. You want to check out. Oh, that is just lousy. So we want to check out, right? By that I mean just check out the code, right? So we want to check out, and then we're going to do is we want to install our dependencies, right? And that includes whatever is in the packaging file, and we also want to install Node.js, right? And afterwards what we want to do is then we want to actually run tests, and then we can use the yarn test command, and then conditionally we can go for deployment if it is the main branch. All right. So well, enough of this lousy diagrams. Let's just actually see this in action and just code this out. So I've made the workflow directory, and inside will two files. One will make something called a test file, and we make YAML files for this to let GitHub know what you want to do. And we'll actually make another file called deploy. But right now we'll make but to begin we just make one file test. And there is a structure for these files. Like here is a very simple structure that we'll just copy paste. right? And we'll just write it as test, and there's a trigger point. So for every push, we would want to have it being triggered, right? Irrespective of the branch and whatever we want to do. Okay. So the job name, we'll keep it as test. Um, so we'll just keep it as test, right? And now, so it will run on my Ubuntu latest. Yes. And then these are these steps. So before we get to this, I want to explain to a couple of concepts in GitHub Actions. So there are, let me go back to my diagram, right? I just want to go back to this. So clear my canvas. Okay, let me go back to my canvas and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I'm back to my canvas and this is what I want to show you. Okay, so uh, so basically, I want to explain to you a couple of more concepts in GitHub Actions. These are just GitHub Actions terms related to actions. So one, there is something called as workflow. So one, there's actually something called as a workflow, right? This is this is just a workflow, right? I'll quickly erase this. Okay, I'm actually having a pretty hard time drawing this. I think it might be just better if I use a browser-based client. It's actually it's not actually working well. So I'm doing it with my hand, right? So let me just do it in a browser instead. I'll show you what I mean. Draw.io. Yeah, let's just do it on a browser. Okay, so there's something called as a workflow, right? Uh, zoom this a bit for you, right? Something called as a workflow, and then the workflow can have one to many jobs. So it can have jobs, right? Think of jobs as like something that is executing in parallel, right? So a workflow, let's say this is a pipeline. A pipeline can have jobs. Let's say, for example, one of the job is to test in a headless browser. Let's say the job to test in a, let's say to run a unit test, just right, just tests in that are executed by the Node.js runner itself. Maybe there is another job that runs the test on a different browser like Safari or Firefox. So we can think of these as just parallel sequence of tests that are running. In our case, if you're just making a test pipeline, okay. So so these are jobs, and then there is something called as actions. I just realized that it's actually a pretty good way to draw diagrams. I was just the one that I had before was atrocious. So this is actions, right? So every job is actually it can have one or more actions. Actions is now I'm just gonna show you this in a little more granularity. Action. So this is like action 2, action 3, and action 1. So this is probably just job 1, this is job 2, and this is job 3, right? And bind you, this is it actually works like this. So sorry, okay, okay, let me just, yeah, there it is. So this is one, right? And then this would be another one. I'm gonna rotate this if I can. I'm not sure how can I rotate this. Uh, uh, okay, but nonetheless, uh, let me just draw this out for you, right? Okay, now this is actually job number 2, right? And this action. So basically, a job can have one to many actions. So an action basically it's actually just a set of command, right? So it's like an action is a command, set of commands, right? So there can be one command and there can be another command, right? So these are just commands. Command is basically whatever you know about a command, right? It can be a yarn build, or let's say it can be a command to delete or something, or delete a file, just a command on the files on your virtual machine. And this is and by the way, the action in the workflow, it can you can either write your own commands for an action, or you can even import an action, which we'll see shortly, from any of the open source repositories or any of the built-in action that GitHub provides us. That actually makes it easier. So they're like they're acting like install Node.js. install Ruby, right? And that has actually a set of internal commands that it runs, and that's just something that I've open sourced and you can use them. And we're going to use a bunch of these. So this is what workflow look like. So in our case, we will actually have two of these workflows. So we will first, for the sake of simplicity, we will not have any parallel jobs, just have one job, and we'll have two workflows. One will be for testing, and one will be for deploying. So think of these as pipelines. Okay, I'm gonna copy these. I'm gonna copy this and paste them here. Sorry about that. There you go. And we're actually gonna have another workflow, and this is what we're gonna have. So this is gonna be a test workflow, and this will be a deploy workflow. So these are gonna be two workflows. Okay, I'm zoom in it and show you. Okay, so let's get right to it. Uh, let's get right to it. And so this is our first test workflow. So like I said, it has a job, it has a it has a job section, right? And we just have we're just gonna have one called test. It'll run on Ubuntu. And what are the steps that we will need to have? The first step that we need to have is probably we just need to check out code base. That is right here. It's gonna run, remove these echo commands, check out repository code, and this action is also a built action from GitHub. So think of this action as a pre set of commands that just checks out my code. It's gonna run these echo commands, and what I'm now after this, I'm gonna install Node.js. And to install Node.js, I'm gonna use a built-in action. I think I think so. Set up Node.js action, something like this, right? And this one. So something like this, right? And we're just gonna paste it actually. Just having a hard time pasting this. Okay, now so node version. Okay, we want to have the same node version as the one we are running. So what is that? Let's see what it is. We don't want to have a Node.js mismatch. So 14 and 17.1. So it's gonna be 14 17.1, and this is what install Node.js for me. And afterwards, we will actually need to now the thing will be to install all the dependencies of our project, right? Do a yarn install. But before we do, I want to show you one more action that we will need. For that, I'll just copy one of the pre-built actions here, and I'll show you what we are going to do. This one. Okay, this one. So what it does is, okay, let me just start this. I'm just gonna delete this. I'm gonna cut this for now. So we're actually gonna use another pre-built community-made action called yarn cache. So what it does is actually it actually saves your yarn. So the next time you come in and you rerun this pipeline for another commit, it will actually cache your previously existing dependencies and will bring them back quickly. So in your virtual machine, in your test runner, so you don't have to reinstall them every now and then from the internet. So that is what we want to accomplish, and by that we just want to use an action called yarn cache. This will cache yarn dependencies, and this is just the only line of code that we need for it. Afterwards, like I just cleared out the previous section, so this is just going to be to install my dependency, and this is we're going to use a different keyword now. We're going to use a keyword called run. That is because this is actually our command, right? So this is our command one. So this is basically our command one, right? So and what we're gonna do is instead of doing yarn install just yarn, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add two flags to it. One is the prefer online, so that it will prefer the cache dependencies over the ones that actually download from the internet. If they're not there, they're just gonna download anyway. And we'll use another call of frozen file. This actually doesn't update the log file when the dependency is downloaded. This is just an additional check that to see the yarn the log file is never updated in the CIS server, right? It's nothing to bother too much about, but this is something we'll have just as a precautionary measure. So we'll install our dependencies, and the next command that we will run is actually I wrote this down, and it's gonna run the test. I'm gonna write this down, or okay, let's just copy this, right? So I've written these down to save some time, so it saves our time, and okay, I actually copied properly. I should have copied from here, right? And there. So the next command that will run is basically action will run this, we'll just run the test, and for we will set up the environment and we'll run this file. Okay, so this is all been to test, and let's actually just go right in and see how it's working. So this is our test script. It looks good, right? Yeah, so my tests are looking good, right? My tests looking good, and now what I'll do is I'll just quickly commit this to the repository, right? So this is our test workflow, and I've added the script. I'm gonna add the script anyway, so but I'm gonna check. I'm basically going to test the action. I'm gonna test the CI pipeline. I'm just gonna push it, and let's see. Let's go to our repository. Let's go to our repository institutions lookup. This one, right? And as soon as I've deployed, so now if I refresh this, let's see what's gonna happen. Sorry, not that. Okay, let's do actions and see what we have. Okay, so it actually failed, right? So something happened and we caused it to fail. You want to see what that is. Steps must define a use or a run key. So this is the syntax in the file. We need to see what that is. This is fine. This is fine, right? Okay. Yes. So we did not want to have this. We don't want to have an hyphen here. It is uses it without the hyphen, right? So this I node like the YAML syntax because it is really hard to debug. So this is the error was probably fix action script, right? So I'm just gonna commit it and we're gonna push it. Right. So let's wait for this now. So keep refreshing the page until we see something. Okay, so probably let's see if we get. Oh, now we got now we got the test runner. Now it's actually running. And now we see that the commit is actually being held. So some checks haven't completed, as you can see. So we're gonna actually test this on every push. So let's go here and let's see the logs. Let's open this and let's see what's happening inside, right? So okay, so it has installed Node.js successfully, as you can see, and it has checked out my repository code. It has set up the job, set up the resources, and now it's just trying to cache our dependencies, trying to create a caching mechanism that we can cache our dependencies later. And let's see. Let's actually make this run for a while. And while this is happening, okay, now it's actually it has finished setting up the cache, and now it will download the dependencies, right? And it's doing a yarn install. That's what it's doing, and it's installing dependencies, and it's taking some time, right? Because it's the first time we're doing, so it will take some additional time. Corresponding times might be a little shorter because of the cache it will be using. Okay, awesome. So we have the packages, we're running the command. Okay, there's some problem now with that. Our tests have failed, right? And if we go back to our repository real quickly, we will actually even see that the commit has actually status of failed. So why is that failed? Because it cannot. Okay, let's see what's actually gonna happen. Okay, it cannot find. Okay, so what actually happened was we set out the environment as test, but we want to create an environment file for it. So ideally, we want to have a separate file for testing as well, and we forgot to create it. That is why the error was. So it's going to create a file. I'm going to copy it from production for now. Ideally, this can have your like mock database credentials or something, your credential of your testing environment, right? But right now, all those are for us, so we'll just add it as a copy, and we will just say that uh, it's the test env file, and we're just going to commit and push it. I'm gonna push it and let's see. This is why what I like about CI, it gives you real feedback, right? It gives that feedback right away, so you know that your commit is not working, your repository is not in order, and you can actually have it. Like, you can actually put in so many other tools that go around this. So for a failed job, you don't need to just you don't even need to go to GitHub to actually see this. And there are many other triggers, many other basically action points that you can do from here. You can actually tap to send you an email if that happens, or post a message on your own behalf on Discord or something, right? So all those are possible, and it just allows you to close your feedback loop and see this as soon as it happens, right? It allows you to signal the developer that his build is failed. He has like written some code that has broken some test somewhere else or something, right? In the code base, broken some other feature in the code base while working on a certain feature. So it gives you that sense of that sense of freedom, and gives sense of confidence that you're not breaking anything, and it's immediate feedback, right? So let's see it do it again. So right now the cache was not found. The reason is that it's actually just a GitHub Actions thing. It actually caches after the success, all the jobs, all the steps, all the actions have successfully run, and then it just caches. Before that, it doesn't cache. So it hasn't really cached because our first job didn't succeed. So that's actually downloading dependencies. So let's just wait for it for a bit, and these now will be downloaded, and then we can rerun this, right? So I hope that you're having fun. We are again a bit late today, but hopefully it's not going to take that long. This is probably going to be a little more smaller session than it was the last time around. Uh, um, okay, so now you can see that our Cypress tests have actually begun correctly, and you can see that server is also run. We are just doing it against the Next.js dev server itself because that's how we are doing it locally. And let's see, this is the S cases that are running, and we have a green signal. So the S cases are passed, and that means that the commit is clean now. Where we can actually we are free to deploy, and we are free to be feel confident about it. Okay, so this is good, right? So if we go back and then see there is a check sign that includes the test cases that pass. Is awesome, right? So this is exactly what we want to accomplish. Now, this is our CI pipeline. This is our testing pipeline. Now we want to have a CD pipeline, right? A deployment pipeline. And let's actually just go to our deploy YAML file. Actually, I have created already. But right now, we're gonna create one from scratch also. So one's called test. We're gonna quickly make another one called deploy.yaml, right? Just like this. I'm just gonna copy all of this that's here. I'm just gonna copy paste it, and then I'm gonna make changes. So okay, now what do we want to do here? This is like a crucial step. Now what do we want to do? I just want to actually add some syntax from GitHub Actions. So we want it on. We do not want it on every push. So how do we want to trigger it? Ideally, we would want to trigger when our test cases have passed, right? Where our test case pipeline has completed. So yeah, we want to do it then, but only when we are doing it on the master branch. So to trigger build on test completion, right? Test pipeline completion. The other is uh, on test pipeline completion and when on master branch, on main branch. So these are the uh, two things. So one is the test pipeline completion, and the other is when it's on our main branch. We want to deploy from the main branch only, not from the other branches for now. Okay, so I'm just copy paste some syntax for you here. That will actually it's the same thing. It means the same that I just explained, right? So I'm just gonna copy paste some syntax here, and this is just gonna be what I just talked about. So this will be on workflow run. This is just a syntax from GitHub Actions, right? On workflows. So we want to do this on the test workflow, the name of the deploy, and the branches will be only main. And whenever it is completed, we want to trigger it. Okay. So there's one more piece of some syntactic sugar that we want to add, and that is on the command. We want to actually check if the previous work was even successful or not. So I'm just gonna paste an if command. This actually helps to bail out from a job if we know that the commit is not broke. If we know that the commit is not good, we will not deploy, right? We will just out of that. So to do that, we will add an if block, and we'll just check previous status of the flow, whether if it's a success or not, right? So this will actually keep it if it's not a success. And I'll show you that also. So now the steps are same. You need to check out, you install the dependencies, and you need to cache your dependencies, and now besides testing, we just need to change this to deploy, right? And we're gonna deploy it, yarn deploy, right? And the environment will be production, like you've guessed. Okay, so now this is all we need to do in the test pipeline. We do need to do something else, but now this should be enough to understand what we want to do. There is one additional step that you might have not guessed initially, but I'm actually going to show you that step is. So for that, I'm just going to run the pipeline and show you why it will fail. So I was going to say deploy pipeline, right? I'm going to sync the changes. Okay, what do we have here? No new charts, right? Okay, no worries. Feel free to point out anything if you want to, right? If there's if there's an issue with the audio, right? I hope the audio is better than last time. Last time it was pretty atrocious, I know. I hope that that's not the case this time around. I would really like some feedback, and that would be really helpful. Okay, so I just pushed out a commit. Let's see. So let's actually go to the actions. Now it's actually just testing now. Like this is basically my test, my test job that is running, and you do not see the deploy job being run. It hasn't run yet. This is just waiting for the test build up to run. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so okay, it's trying to populate the cache again. It's just gonna take some more time. Actually doesn't take this much time normally. It's taking a bit more time than expected. Right? Okay, so it has actually okay, it has found the cache and it has restored cache. So from the previous build, right? So let's see if I install push dependencies any faster this time around because I really want to see that. It's pretty interesting actually. So I'm not sure if it's fast, but I'm not really sure. Okay, it is actually fast. So it's 20 seconds. Last time it was like 30 seconds or so. It has definitely it has speeded up. So here my tests are now gonna run. Right, this is gonna be my Cypress doing this thing. Right, and okay. So these are just warning, right? That we don't want to address right now because we don't really they don't affect our tests that are running currently, right? And okay, the test run and the pipeline is completed. Now if I go back to actions, I will see now my deploy pipeline has started. This is the correct series of events that must have happened, right? And it's just waiting for the runner to come line, right? And okay, so now it's going to do the same thing. It's going to check for the cache, install the dependencies, and deploy. The best thing about being using workflows and single repository is that, and using a package called basically a package like this, it actually reuses the cache from across the branches and across the projects, and it uses that, right? It looks at your log file. If your log file has changed, so it will actually regard it as a different cache. So that's really cool about it. And it's a rerun. It's actually reused across your workflows and your repository in general, right? So it's not restore from cache. It just did, and now we are going to install dependencies, but it's going to take so much time this time around. It's going to bring them in from the cache now. This is just a yarn cache that we're using. npm can also use. Not using npm, so it's just going to be yarn. Okay, so let's actually wait for this to happen. Right, I hope this is quick. It is very quick, and there you go. Okay, now it's going to deploy, right? So the deploy step. Do you remember it has actually tried to run the deployment script, and now it is going to run the production optimize. It's actually going to build production build, and let's just see this happen. Okay, now you see the error, right? I talked about there's going to be an error, and you do see the error, and look what it is. Basically, it has started to upload on our web server, but as you can see, the key verification has failed. So that means that, yeah, I mean, for sure, right? That's what we kind of expected. So GitHub doesn't really have access to our server. It doesn't have the that's on my laptop, so it wouldn't really know how to get into the server, right? And that is the error, and that is why we're seeing this. So the next step and the missing piece of this puzzle is just now to actually add the SSH key inside the pipeline. And to do that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a concept called secrets. So ideally, you really don't want to hard code any credentials or passwords inside your source code because your source code goes a lot of places and a lot of developers have access to your source code. You don't really want every developer to have access to your server. So ideally, this is something that's really fragile. You don't want this to be in the pipeline itself. I'm not gonna say something like a copy. I'm not gonna paste a key file here. I'm not gonna paste the contents of the key file in one of the my source code and then use that here. So what I'll instead do, I'll actually use a concept called secrets. So if I go to my repository, and there's something the repository owner can only do. So if I go to my secrets right here, if I go to my settings, I'll just show you this again. So if I go to my settings and I go to my secrets, and this is my secrets, right? And these are the two secrets that I mean, you have environment secrets and we have repository secrets. Right now, we want to add a repository secrets, and we want to add this in such a way that then we can refer these secrets in the workflow file, and then we can use them. So let's actually do it. So we need, of course, we need the private key file here, and to do that, we will first I'll just copy some commands in the pipeline, and then we're going to add the secret. So I'm just going to copy these commands that I have here. This one, all right, I'm just going to copy these commands and I'm just gonna put them here. Then I'll explain to you what we're doing. So it's a create SSH key. We're gonna create an SSH key from our secret. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna first add a key file, right? We're just basically just going to add this key file, right? We're just gonna add an empty file with the proper permissions, and then what we're gonna do is we are actually going to paste whatever is in our secrets of private key file into this file. So this is what this command does. And there's another command that you would need to add. You need to also add the known host string inside our known host. This is something, if you remember, we actually, once we logged in the server the first time, it actually it asked us whether we want to add it to our known host or not. So we want to see that check on CI server. So we actually add it beforehand on the file. So let's add these two, and basically these are the two variables. One is the private key. This is the name of the repository secret. We'll just name it private key, and we'll just copy it from our laptop. So there's a command in macOS that you can use. It's this one. So pb copy, right? You just want to copy this key. I'm just gonna paste here, right? You can see the key. It's okay. It's really just fine. It's just I'm just not reusing it anyway. So I'm gonna add this key, and I'm gonna add it now. And I'm not gonna add the another thing that is known host. So I'm actually gonna open for this. I'm gonna open my known host file, right? And there's a known host file in sh folder that you can use. And the last line will actually give us the host for the server that we were accessing, right? So it's gonna copy this. I'm gonna paste it here. So this is our IP address. This is the known host string, uh, and this is the name of the secret. So we're gonna paste it here, and we're gonna add the secret. So we're almost done, and now the secrets are there. What we need to now do is we just need to redeploy our workflows, and this will be good. Let's actually just redeploy this, right? We're gonna rerun this, and let's see. Oh, sorry. Actually, we're not gonna rerun it. We have to also commit these steps, right? So I'm sorry for that. Just cancel this quickly. And okay, this is good, right? I think this should be good too. Let's add it. Okay. So it's gonna commit it. Save all commit, right? I'm just gonna push it. Oh, sorry. I actually made an error here. Sorry about that. Remove of string. I'm just gonna write a real quick commit message, and then we can cancel the latest one. Or it has actually failed, I think. Yeah, so it has actually failed. No, it's been cancelled. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. I did push it, right? So let's see. Okay, I don't see any triggers. Okay, I don't see any triggers yet. Okay, why is that? That's kind of weird. Okay, so I have my test and my deploy here, right? And let's see why I can't see my actions being run. Okay, I'm not really sure what's going on here. Ideally, after each commit, they should be there. I don't see my commit. Okay, I just committed. Did I push it? Okay, wait. Okay, wait a second. Okay, I actually used, I actually used incorrect repository. I shouldn't have used that one. Okay, I actually used an incorrect repository. Sorry, I was pushing to the repository that I was trying this way, and now push it to the actual repository. So let me do that. Okay, create SSH key in CD pipeline. Okay, CD is for continuous deployment or delivery, and CI is for short form for continuous integration, wherein you generally run tests. Okay, so this is good. Let's go back to the actions and let's see. Okay, definitely, yeah, the build has started. This is the test. Now we're gonna test it, and this is starting to get a bit boring, but this hopefully be the last time that we are going to run the pipeline. Well, at least we're gonna see it end to end. Then we can rerun it and we can play around with it. But this is what we're gonna do, and let's see. Okay, so now, okay, sorry, shouldn't close that. Shouldn't close that either. So it's gonna keep my server on. This is my institutions log. Okay, so now let it build the commit. As you can see now, it's actually building the commit and testing it out. Okay, okay, okay. It's gonna close my terminal. See if I have anything here. No, not really. Okay, okay. So let's actually go to Twitch and see how it's actually working. Nice, nice. All right. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, sorry about that. I'm just waiting for this. So test cases are fast, obviously. Let's go and see the deploy step that we wanted to see, the deploy pipeline, and it has started to run. Okay, it's setting up, right? And let's see. The deploy, mind you, will only be run when it's on the main branch. It will run on any other branches. We can test this out, and this is how it's gonna work. So we don't want to deploy every commit. Okay, so this is the last piece of the puzzle, and hopefully after this we should be probably done, right? Okay, it's trying to populate in the cache, download, install from cache itself. Okay, so this is the deploy pipeline, and that is the data pipeline. Well, it's looking pretty good so far. So far, I really like this. It's really concise and it's really easy to use. I really like the concept of using actions. A lot of people have, built custom action reduce, like installing yarn, installing Node.js, caching your dependencies, and there could be others, right? Posting an email, things like that, right? So this is just a very exciting space and very easy to use, right? So I don't need to have too many. You don't have too much skilled with Linux or Ubuntu to use this. And there's actually one good thing that I really like about GitHub Actions, that GitHub Actions, it, it allows you to not just use Ubuntu, but it allows you to use macOS as well. Isn't that pretty astonishing? So you can use this to actually deploy your app on the App Store as well. So if you don't have MacBook, right? Uh, this is actually pretty cool. And oh, now you can see that yes, it has actually now gotten access to the server and it's now opening the file. So this is perfect and this is exactly what we want, right? So let it actually go now. Let it keep on going, and it's actually just uploading my files right now. There you go. And here it is. This is done, and this is done. It's just cleaning up, and good, and a job well done. And this is all we do. And now our pipeline has successfully been set up. I would not like to go back to that hideous diagram that I made on my iPad. I really want to go back to that. But now you've got the sense of it, and now our pipeline is complete. Let's see this in action. So what we'll do is we'll actually gonna change a file and see live. So let's see. Let's change a file and see if it's actually working or not. Right. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna uh, I'm just gonna use a globe. I'm just gonna add an emoji here quickly, and we'll just see the deployment in action. I'm just gonna add a globe EMG right there. Add emoji. Feed emoji. Okay. Okay. Let me comment this out. We're good, and let's push it. So here is our service. If we refresh it, so there is no emoji, right? Ideally, once we have pushed it, now it should be tested and it should be deployed successfully. If everything goes well, hoping it should. We didn't change anything. Yeah, right. And here's the test suite. Here's our test job. This is actually getting a bit boring, to be honest. See jobs on again and again, but yeah, I mean it is pretty cool if you think about it, right? What we are doing here, and this is just how we would like to automate everything in our repository. And I would like to actually point you while this is happening, right? I want to point you to the documentation of GitHub Actions. I want to show you like what are the different type of automation that you can use, and there are so many type of automation you can do. To be honest, it's just not. I mean, it's just not pushing like it's just not pushing to a certain branch or certain thing, right? There are so many other things that you can do. Let's say, for example, let's say someone filed an issue on your repository. From there, you can trigger a workflow. You can send an email, and you can do all sorts of quick things. So, if I want to see that, let me actually show you an in-depth tutorial, and I want to show you something called events that trigger workflows. So isn't that actually pretty cool? And I would want to turn your attention to this, right? So it's actually it can be triggered on push. If someone makes a pull request, you want to merge that pull request and test your commit with the source branch and the destination branch, right, being merged. So you can do that. On pull request, you can do a lot of things, right? Even when you create a tag and you release a new job can be run. You can actually do this on a schedule as well. You can actually do this on a daily basis. You want to run jobs, nightly jobs, right? You want to do nightly deploys each night. Let's say you want to deploy a new version to production, you can do that, right? You don't want to do that right because that might quite downtime for users. So you want to do it, let's say in the middle of the night. So you can do that, by using a cron. And then of course the workflow dispatch also, right? You can call one workflow from the other, like we just did, but in a bit different way. So we can actually also, so there's so many events, right? So this, if you fork a repository, right? If you add a pull request, if you add an issue, so let's say if you add an issue, it will automatically, let's say, add a label or assign assign it to someone, right? So there are so many things. Let's say someone creates a pull request, and you can assign a reviewer automatically. All those things are actually, or you can automate them, and not just on issues. You can do this for discussions. You can do this for forks. You can actually do it for a lot of things. It's actually pretty cool, right? You can even use hooks on the registry, or the GitHub that recently introduced concept of registries in the repository. You can have hooks on that well, and you can have their tabs there as well. And all those things can be defined as custom triggers. Not custom triggers, but inbuilt triggers that GitHub gives us. Okay, so let's actually see our actions. It's deploying our code now, right? It's actually a minute ago, so it must be somewhere down, somewhere deep. Okay, it's actually deploying, which is good, right? Right, deploy, and let's see. Let's wait for it, and then hopefully we can call it off. Hopefully we can consider the job well done. Okay, so now it is creating a production build. Now it's loading files to our web server, and it has connected, and now it's started to upload, and the files have been uploaded almost. Uh, uh, okay. So let me refresh, but let's just wait for it to complete. So my static assets, they're also going in, right? This is my favicon, my HTML, right? Okay, it's done, and there you go. Let's refresh it and see. And yes, for sure. So this is basically what we wanted to accomplish uh, right from the start, and I'm glad we're able to do it. And yes, our pipeline is now completely working, and we have a continuous deployment pipeline in our hands. We test our code for every commit. We deploy our commits to our actual live server, and we do that all pretty automatically. No one of your devs need to log into the server and do this manually for you. And this is done all automated using GitHub Actions. And that's built in GitHub, and very easily, it's very friendly with the GitHub ecosystem. So this is how we have done it, and this actually marks the end of our session. And I hope that this was insightful. This was certainly very insightful for me, and I've also learned a few things along the way. So I hope that was same for you. And so if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat, and I'll answer them right away. Or have them, if you don't if you don't have questions right away, you can also just use my social media handles, and you can basically get to me. You can you can reach out, right? So basically, there's a Twitter handle I have that you can use, right? And you can reach out to me on Twitter or on LinkedIn, right? And we can have a chat, right? So this is just my handle, right? If you want to know what handle is, so this is going to be my handle, right? And feel free to reach out in case you want. And this is it really. I mean, this is the end of the session, and I once again hope that this was insightful, right? And thank you for your time, and hope to catch you some other day. Bye bye.